Are you ready to go around the world? Sit back, relax, and buckle your seatbelt as we take off for an adventure. It's jet-lag free but filled full of fun and travel insights. The only thing you'll need to pack is a sense of humor. Time for the award-winning travel show, Around the World.
Welcome, Globetrotters and Armchair Travelers, to Around the World. I'm Arthur von Wiesenberger, and sitting in the co-pilot seat is Jim Buckley.
Give you a thumbs up here.
Jim is the travel correspondent for the Montecito Journal. You've got a copy of one of those right
I
next to you,
do indeed. Well, actually, for the magazine, it's the new issue.
Oh, look at that.
Montecito Journal. This is now what I do. I founded the Montecito Journal paper and the mag, but I'm no longer a publisher. I sold my shares. So now I'm a travel correspondent.
Wow, and we're thrilled to have
Got a
you
new
on board.
Career. Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome to your new career here.
Thank you.
Around the world. We got a great show today, Jim.
Yeah.
I mean, we got so many good travelers that come on the show, and always we try and find a little something different. You know, not always the same old, because that's what makes life interesting. So starting off, we've got Max Hartshorne, who's the editor of GoNomad.com, wonderful travel website. And Max travels probably more than anyone I know. He just got back from Saxony.
Not more than you.
Oh, no, he travels much more than me.
Really?
I'm here. I can do the show. I can travel. No, I do travel. But Max came back from Saxony, and he's going to tell us all about his experiences in Dresden and what's been happening, I guess, post-war. Because,
yes, Dresden, 90% of it was totally destroyed. I'm sure he'll tell you all about it. Yeah. And everything has been rebuilt stone by stone. It's remarkable. I've only known about this. I've heard about it.
I've never been there either.
But I've not been.
It's in the former Eastern Bloc, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, when I went to the former Eastern Bloc, it was over Checkpoint Charlie.
Right.
In Berlin.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
I did.
Wasn't that fascinating?
The wonderful museum there is no longer there, but at the time, yeah, they had a museum which showed how people tried to escape.
Yeah.
And they started the whole story about the wall being built and Khrushchev and Kennedy and all that. Yeah, it was great.
I went across, and they would follow you with those machine guns as you're walking across.
Oh, and I didn't go there with. I mean, I was after the wall fell.
This was when the wall was
still
up.
If you went before, I know.
You had to change 5 Deutschmarks into East German currency, which was worthless.
Right.
And then we went to try and find something to eat, and there were no restaurants.
Yeah.
There was just cafeterias.
Well, there were some apartments, I think, right, that people would. You had to know about them.
We went to a cafeteria.
Yeah.
And the cafeteria only was serving sausage, and they had run out of mustard. Yeah. And basically, it was tasteless.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I've only heard rumors. I don't know that.
You didn't miss much.
No.
Anyway, then we're going to go to Greece with Jeffyne Telson. Jeffyne has an organization.
ResQcats, right?
Yeah, wonderful group that really does rescue cats. But she went down to Greece and saw it a little bit different from the average, let's say, Greek holiday.
Yeah, apparently she spent a few months there, right?
Yeah. So we'll find out all about that.
Okay.
Then you're going to take us to France.
I am indeed.
You are a Francophile.
Well, I am.
Where are we going to go in France?
We're just going to Paris this time around. I frequently go to Normandy and pay my respects to the soldiers who lost their lives there. Last year I went to Brittany, played some golf at the second oldest golf course in Europe. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but I don't know. But it's where Hugh Grant plays as well. And the nice thing about playing in Brittany is still like, this sort of subsection of France. They're all just French people there.
Yeah.
Not a lot of tourism. There is tourism, but not a lot. Not compared to other places.
And great seafood.
Like the south of France. Great seafood. Restaurants, if you go to some of the bays there's just restaurant after restaurant. There's 100 restaurants along the bay. And right in front of you, this was in Saint-Malo, are the oyster beds. And where they, and they're just picking them fresh right out of the bay, because Saint-Malo has the same kind of tides that.
The very extreme tides.
Extreme tides, and so it'll be empty there. It'll just be mud, and every sailboat is just stuck in the mud, and then the tide comes in, and everybody gets up to sail, and the oysters come in, they lay their eggs or whatever they do, oyster style.
Oysters do? What do oysters do anyway?
And then they can, harvest them, and they harvest them daily or weekly.
Wow.
Pretty fascinating.
That sounds great. And then finally we're going to wing it, which is a European road trip that I did just last month with a couple of friends, and how we traveled. Actually, with Hotels.com is the only thing we had to organize where we're going to spend each night, but it was all done on the spur of the moment. And sometimes that can be the best traveling.
Yeah, and I've heard that you've grown accustomed to central seating.
Never will become accustomed to that. So we got that and much, much more on this edition of Around the World. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take off. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Canine of mine, friend for all time. So glad you're my best friend. Through thick and thin, we'll see things through. Canine of mine, so true.
For the complete A to Z of everything to do with animals, go to animalzone.org. And we're back here on Around the World. I'm Arthur von Wiesenberger. Jim Buckley in the co-pilot seat today as we zoom across the globe. You know, our first stop is a place I haven't been to called Saxony.
You got to show me on the map where in Germany Saxony is, because I don't really know.
Well, I know where a saxophone is, but I don't know where Saxony is. But there's one guy who will know where it is because he was there, and he is the editor of GoNomad.com, a fantastic travel website. Max Hartshorne. Hello, Max.
Good to be with you folks. Hello, Jim, and hello, Arthur.
Great to have you on board with us. And so first question is, where in the world is Saxony?
Saxony is in the northern and eastern part of Germany. As you remember, Germany used to be divided in two, and when it was divided in two, this was East Germany. So Dresden, it was one of the most prosperous towns with a wonderful, beautiful, still is a magnificent town. And you all know the reason that what everybody says when you bring up the Dresden. You know, there's one thing everybody always references in America. What's that? What do you think?
It was destroyed in World War II, right at the end of World War II.
Exactly. It was the last, almost the last thing the Allies did on their way to finishing the war was to drop more bombs on Dresden than had been dropped on the entire country of England during the whole bombing of Britain.
As I understand it, it was Churchill's payback, right?
It was really a terrible thing, and these beautiful, beautiful palaces that now you can visit were all just destroyed, but they were destroyed kind of from the inside out. A lot of the buildings remained standing, and so now they're just everything has been recreated, so it looks just like it did when it was first built, and it's magnificent from everywhere you go. There's one long wall that you look at, and it has porcelain tiles and paintings of every king of Saxony, like 150 feet long, beautiful tiles. Each king is profiled. That's the kind of thing they have there in Saxony. And there's the main square of Saxony where the palace is, and you're looking at part of the palace. The palace is in the news, you know, because you heard about the Great Robbery. Recently,
yes, I have, in an uninsured museum, as I hear.
In November, the Green Vault was hit for $1 billion worth of jewels. And we were just visiting. It just had been reopened because it's part of the parade apartments in the Royal Palace, and it had just been renovated to a tune of hundreds of thousands of euros, almost millions of euros. And so now it's still open to the public, and it's still magnificent, but unfortunately it's missing some of the jewels.
Did they have any idea who did it?
Well, I'm no detective, but I would say that, I think you've got to go look at the construction crew who was involved in that reconstruction there. Yeah, no, they don't.
Well, that was a very interesting thing, but it still hasn't daunted the people from visiting. But, when you talk about Germany, you guys mentioned Bavaria, and, that's what people always think of when Americans think of Germany. They think of Bavaria, Munich, Frankfurt, Stuttgart. And these other cities are just magnificent. Leipzig and Dresden are the two cities that I visited, along with another one I'll talk about next time. But Leipzig and Dresden are wonderful places that are really heavily bombed and yet beautifully restored.
Well, thank you for that pronunciation, because I've always called it Leipzig. So from now on, it's Leipzig for me. Thank you.
Leipzig it is.
Tell me, first of all, Max, getting to Dresden or getting to one of those cities, did you fly from the U.S. there, or did you have to take an inter-European trip?
No, I did fly direct to Dresden. I did. I flew right from Boston.
No kidding.
What airline?
Let me just think. What airline was that?
It wasn't Air Berlin, was it? Of course, they're out of business.
I'm having a momentary lapse.
It was at Lufthansa?
Think about this and get back to you. I think that I flew on Norwegian, actually.
Okay.
Wow. You know, Norwegian seems to be going everywhere now.
Yeah, and they've got apparently, from what I hear.
I've been using Norwegian a lot, and I really like Norwegian. It's great.
Do you, by the way, on Norwegian, do you do the premium?
They have a business class.
You know, I do the middle thing. I never do the cheapest thing, because then they don't include your bag, and they don't give you any food, and then I don't do the most expensive. So I'm right in the middle. I always make sure I don't do the budget. Don't do the price they advertise, because that just kills you when you have to pay $70 for one suitcase and then get no food.
And no food, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you flew into Dresden.
I want to talk about some of the things that one of the photographs in our collection of photographs that I showed you that we're going to show here on the screen. Yeah. There's a picture of the wedge. And the wedge is Daniel Libeskind's magnificent museum. It is the building that it used to be a barracks, and then it was from the 1800s, a limestone building. And Libeskind put this gigantic wedge into the side of the building. It looks like almost like it was struck by something. And inside the wedge are some really, 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 let's say it's a museum for people that don't like the military, even though it's a military museum. Some of the things in this wedge area of the museum really contradict the whole concept of war and why Germany did what they did. And a lot of guilt, a lot of, sorrow, a lot of really poignant things in that wedge. In this military museum, where you can see things like the animal that you may have seen in the gallery. There's an animal. There's a series of animals that they used in the war. They actually, man-used animals in the war. Dresden and Leipzig are very thoughtful places, filled with museums and lots of culture.
Where did you stay when you were in Dresden?
We stayed at the Hotel Max Planck, and it was a wonderful hotel named after an artist. I think his name is Planck. He was an artist in Dresden, and he was, he died in the hands, or died recently because of the difficulties with, it was a tough time. They had Stasi back then. East Germany was really tough, and Dresden was in the heart of East Germany. So, but they name it after him. He's an artist, and a lot of his work is in the Planck Hotel. Very nice, very modern. Everything was really good. The food was really, really good in this part of Germany.
And speaking of food, because I usually travel with my stomach, or it takes me around.
I saw you at lunchtime.
Yeah. So you know how that goes.
Completely buy that story.
I was a bit over the top there, especially with that mud pie, but that's another story. What kind of food? Is it sausages? Is that what's happening in Dresden? A lot of meats and stuff, or did you find something beyond that?
Oh, well, certainly beyond that. I mean, some of these Michelin star chefs, doing beautiful things with vegetables. Of course, there are the traditional German things, the Wiener Schnitzel. I got a photograph of the Wiener Schnitzel and the typical heavy, potatoes and gravy. But it's a really, really choice vegetarian, a lot of farm-to-table stuff, a lot of really good awareness about organic food. And some of the best chefs in the world, I think, are working in Germany now. The cuisine has really been great. And in East Germany, too. And, this is basically just the eastern part of Germany, but it has such a legacy. You keep thinking about, there's so many throwbacks to the days of the Soviet tie-up. They always talk about how Stasi used to listen to everybody's phone calls, and how you could never leave the country, and how it was really oppressed and it was difficult. And now they're liberated in a lot of ways. It's a very revolutionary part of Germany.
Wow, it looks great. Well, I'm getting hungry all over again, and we just finished lunch here, but I'm looking at the pictures, and they look delicious, Max.
Yeah, that was that was actually taken in one of the oldest restaurants in Europe, a 500-year-old restaurant. It's a restaurant that was frequented by Martin Luther's friend. It was owned by Martin Luther's friend, so Martin Luther used to go there. And Dr. Faustus, the great story about the guy with the devil on his back, is portrayed, and there's some artwork in the restaurant, and it's called Auerbach Keller, and they have giant beers and a lot of beautiful places to eat, different dining areas in these small, underground, sort of like in a wine cellar. A really great, magnificent place, kind of a wonderful, memorable place to eat.
Wow. 500-year-old restaurant, probably a lot of aged beef there too, right?
Restaurant. Yeah.
Hey, Max, it sounds great, and you're going to be doing a lot of traveling in the year ahead. I hope we're going to hear more about your adventures in offbeat places that we don't even think about. That's what I love to hear about, and GoNomad does so well.
Well, I have a section I want to talk to you about next time we're on. I want to share some information about Little Rock, Arkansas. What a great destination. I just had such a fun time there.
Oh, Great. Well, I'll be interested to hear.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I hope you travel well in 2020, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you in the year ahead. Thanks so much, Max, for joining us.
Thanks very much, Arthur.
Take care. Happy trails.
All right.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got more Around the World. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Back to Around the World. I'm Arthur von Wiesenberger, Jim Buckley in the co-pilot seat, flying beautifully, I might add. Sir, you're doing good.
Do my best.
This is a virgin flight for you, isn't it? Well, you've been on Around the World before, but not as a co-pilot.
Not over here in the co-pilot seat.
Yeah, is it different?
Yeah, this is
it's
scary. It is. I look out the window and nothing but air down there.
It is. Well, we're running along, and we're going to our next destination, which is a place that I've been to before, but never to where this person went to. Joining us is Jeffyne Telson, who is the president of ResQcats. And ResQcats is an organization based here in Santa Barbara, California, that rescues, guess what?
Cats.
Meow. You got it. ResQcats is an amazing group. They've been around for 22 years, and it's really the love child of Jeffyne. She has adopted and saved hundreds, nay, thousands of cats and kittens. And so she's a real hero in my book, and she's joining us here in studio. Jeffyne, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Well, am I right? I mean, you've rescued, what, how many cats do you think over
We
there?
have actually adopted out over 3,200 now in the 22 years that we've been in operation.
Wow.
But we have reached out into the community and helped hundreds of others. But 3,200 have actually come through our facility.
That's fantastic. And you save them from otherwise being euthanized by some of the
Yes,
shelters?
we take in stray and abandoned, and then we also pull from high kill shelters where they would be euthanized. We pull pregnant moms, we pull moms with 4-day-old kittens that are scheduled for euthanasia because the shelters are overcrowded. So
Wow.
I can't sit there with the space empty and not be helping.
Well, you're amazing. Now, that leads us to how you got to Greece. Tell us how that story happened.
Well, it's a once-in-a-lifetime story. I had been to Greece 3 or 4 times on cruises and had been to several of the islands and noticed that there was a problem and a lot of stray cats. So I'd always had the dream that, well, one day I would love to go back and be able to help the cats. And then about 1.5 years ago, there was a post on Facebook that went viral. It went around the world. It came across my desk 2 or 3 times, and I just looked at it and thought, wow, that's really neat. but I didn't think much about it and just always, hit the delete button.
What was the post?
Well, it was about it was a small island in the Aegean called Syros, 8 by 10 miles, and there is a sanctuary there called God's Little People Cat Rescue. And Joan Bowell, the founder, was looking for an interim director to be there for several months and look over everything. So, it sounded like a great opportunity, but I was so honestly busy with rescue cats that I just didn't think about it. Was sitting at dinner one night across from my husband. He had put the post in my box, and he looked at me, he said, "Did you see the post about Greece in your box?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, what did you think?" And I said, "Well, I'd be away for 4 to 6 months. How would you feel about that?" And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "Jeffyne, that job has you written all over it and you should apply." So I spent the next 2 days and I wrote to Joan, and I just wrote from my heart. I told her how I feel about animals, how I spend my vacations feeding stray cats and dogs, that I'm vegan. So my whole life is really about animals. And then at the end of the letter, she wanted a photo. She got 35,000 applicants.
Holy
Oh,
mackerel.
wow.
Yep, and she read through my letter and she got down. She said, "I can't wait to see your picture, can't wait to see your picture." She got to the photo and she took one look at the photo and she said, "That's the one." So they actually, Joan and her husband Richard were visiting New York, and they made a trip out to Santa Barbara. I still didn't realize that I had the job until they offered it. And I accepted it under one condition, and that was that I was not going to take the salary that they were offering. I understand what it's like to constantly be raising funds for a nonprofit. I didn't need it. It fit right in with when I usually take some time off from rescue cats. So I spent from the beginning of November through the end of February on the island.
Wow. Okay, so this island of Syros.
Yes.
Are there any other people there besides the cats?
Well, there are 22,000 residents on an 8 by 10 island and 13,000 stray cats.
Wow.
The problem there is it's everywhere in the Greek islands, and it has a lot to do with the fact that cats are not seen as sentient beings worthy of love and affection and caring, so people discard them. I won't go into the ways that they do it, but it's been bad. And then the lack of the spay-neutering that doesn't happen on the islands. So you have lots of colonies spread around the island. And of course, when I got there...
Colonies of cats.
Colonies of cats. Some of them live out of dumpsters. Others are downtown. They're everywhere. So when I first got there, I immediately saw that I was not going to be able to save 13,000 cats. That's hard because when you rescue, you want to do as much as you can. So each time I went out, I had to remind myself that you can only make a difference for one at a time. We actually chose a colony up at a Greek Orthodox church, and we worked on pulling the sickest and the weakest from those colonies and bringing them in. So I had a lot of hands-on foster care, which is something that I don't get to do as much of at Rescue Cats, that hands-on taking care of, loving without all the paperwork and adoptions. So that was a wonderful experience, but it was also humbling. And you really did have to grasp that you could only help one at a time. One of the best way to describe the trip, I think, is when my husband came to visit me, and we went up to the church colony, and he saw the shape that some of them were in, and we got into the car, and he was unusually quiet. And Mitch is never quiet.
No, I know.
And I looked at him and I said, "Something's wrong. Are you okay?" He said, "I just feel sad." And I said, he said, "I don't know how you do it." I said, "Here's how I do it. For every morsel of food that I give them, for every can of food that I open and I offer them, Every time I sit down in the middle of the street and talk to them, whether it's out loud or from my heart, or they come to me or they stop and just look, I know I've made a difference for them, even for a moment, maybe for that day. And my message to everyone would be that's better than doing nothing at all.
That's great.
When you go to these colonies of cats, if you don't mind my asking, is there some structure among the cats, as there would be, let's say, with dogs? You know, usually they'll have a alpha male,
dog,
a couple of them. And,
you know, that's hard to tell, I think, because they're all just in survival mode. I know there are a lot of, there of course are a lot of fights with between the males, you know, trying to get to the females.
Okay.
But there's also a lot of illness. We see a lot of upper respiratory infections there. The winters are bitter. You wouldn't think that about Greece. I think I thought it would be somewhat like Hawaii when I got there, but it was the coldest winter they had. And the summers are brutally hot. So you see a lot of cats that have no place to go in the winter, so they're burrowing inside the hillside and the rocks and trying to just get shelter. In the summer, you see you know, they want to be out where everybody else is, but they do suffer a lot of skin cancer, nose cancer, ear cancer. Now the culture there is starting to change. They have a veterinarian that is working there to educate the people about the worthiness of cats. I mean, we pretty much have it down here, but over in other countries they don't. So what he has done is he has set up cat gardens. So let's say you have a place that's a lot of dirt area, not well kept, and the cats are there and people seeing them as a nuisance. So what he does is he gets the people that live in the community to come in, to volunteer, to set up a cat garden, put nice stones down, plants, a feeder, fresh water, and then he puts a sign up. He names each cat garden, and he puts a sign up that says, "We can live together." So that is starting to take off in the Aegean. He has volunteers coming from the mainland to help set up the cat gardens. And it's just a matter of slowly educating the people and making that transition. It was amazing, as poor of a country and as poor of an island as Syros is, you'd see the little Greek men and Greek women, you know, typical of what you think in a storybook, carrying their little plastic bags full of food and feeding the cats.
do you do anything about sterilization of the animals?
They do.
They do, but not you.
Well, we did. We participated
You
in
did.
spay-neuter days.
Yeah.
With the veterinarian, gosh, the first 3-day session that he had, he was able to spay and neuter 106.
I see.
Yeah. But when you're looking at 13,000,
It's a lot of Spain.
yeah.
Hey, Jeffyne, thank you so much for coming today
You're
on
welcome.
the world and sharing those insights. Something a little bit different than the average travel experience, but fascinating.
Spending 3 months on a Greek island with 13,000 cats?
Yeah, definitely different.
I'd say that's
huh?
interesting.
Well, it gets better.
All righty, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be traveling to Paris with Jim Buckley. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
The Santa Barbara Humane Society is an independent, local, community-based nonprofit with adoptable animals ready to find a forever home today.
The Santa Barbara Humane Society offers low-cost spay and neuter and vaccinations to cats and dogs in our community. And Dr. Sisk is our veterinarian who performs those surgeries and helps with the vaccinations. Also, please have a relationship with your local veterinarian in case of an emergency.
Visit sbhumanesociety.org and remember,
At the Santa Barbara Humane Society, we want you to adopt, not shop.
Canine of mine, friend for all time. So glad you're my best friend. Through thick and thin, we'll see things through. Canine of mine, so true.
For the complete A to Z of everything to do with animals, go to animalzone.org. Welcome back to Around the World. We're mesmerized by this world.
It is. But I know. Go ahead. Tell me about the world.
It's going around all on its own.
All by itself.
There's no wires. There's no nothing. You
Just
know how it works?
kind of like in space. That's what we do.
It's kind of like.
But you know that the North Pole is shifting considerably over there, you know?
Look, Oh, there it goes. No. I guess it doesn't go.
The whole world is tilted, but with the North Pole has moved some miles from the original North Pole.
Oh.
And it's moving, I forget how much every week, but it's moving.
So does that mean that Iceland is going to be the new North Pole?
Well, there's some evidence that the poles have shifted in the past and caused some trouble.
Trouble's my middle name, so we're okay. Jim Buckley in studio with us as we go around the world.
Yeah.
And we're going to Paris, which is certainly probably on my top 3 destinations in the world.
You know, it's a pretty city, and they're going to have the Olympics there in 24, starting in July, late July. And the entire city is under construction. Because according to Macron and the French, that every building, every public building has to be cleaned and spotless for the opening of the Olympics. So every building that you've ever seen, the Arc de Triomphe, you name it, it's being done, and so it's a mess, traffic-wise and construction-wise. But I will say, I got a little picture in there in the story that I did for the Montecito Journal, that the reconstruction of Notre Dame is well underway.
That's amazing.
You know, we wouldn't have done it here, but the Notre Dame will be finished before the Olympics begin in 2024. So that's a good thing.
I mean, after what you saw
I
happen
know.
there, it's hard to even envision that they would get going.
Right.
I mean, what's happening here in Santa Barbara, and it happened to a shed, it would take 20 years.
Yes, it would.
As we know. But that's Santa Barbara.
Exactly. So,
So
anyway,
where were you staying when you got to Paris?
I rented an apartment.
Was it an Airbnb?
No,
experience?
through VRBO,
Yeah.
Vacation Rentals by Owner, and I actually got there the wrong time.
How so?
I arrived. Well, I had told the people that I needed the place from the 24th to the 24th, October to November. And I arrived on the 24th. And in an email they sent me, they said, we've got those times for you, no problem, we're going to set it up. So I made the arrangements. But in their email, they had said starting from the 26th, which I didn't read, right?
Oh, geez.
So here it is, the 24th. I come there, I call the guy up, I'm here, and he goes,
Who are you?
It's Thursday. I'm like, you're supposed to arrive on Saturday. I said, no, I told you that. Anyway, but luckily, he had a bunch of apartments that he rents out, and he gave me, it's a 5-floor walk-up.
Nice, good exercise.
Yeah, right? Good exercise.
You can have many croissants.
Teeny little thing. Ceiling couldn't have been higher than 6'2", so, but I'm a short guy, so it was fine with me. But it had a kitchen, had TV, it had all that. The nice thing, I'm right on the Seine.
Oh,
I'm
lovely.
virtually I'm on the same island, on the Ile de Cité, with the Notre Dame.
Wow.
But all the bateau mouche would go by me, and I'd be up off the little patio up there, and I would wave because all the tourists were waving at me because they'd see me up there, and I'd give them a nice wave back.
They probably went, what a cute Frenchman.
There you go. I didn't have my beret, but otherwise I was being French. Yeah. But anyway, so while I was there, there's a new museum that's opened up. It's called the L'Atelier des Lumieres. And it's an old foundry building. It's a building that was 200 years old. And in fact, they've built an apartment building on top of it. But they kept the original structure. I'm not quite sure why. I don't think it has any historical value, but it might be. I actually don't know. But it's about 5,000 square feet, and it's all 2.5 stories, maybe even 3 stories high. So we're talking 30 feet, more or less. And a big open space, but it has stairways and levels and a little fountain and a basement and all this. And they've used 50 speakers and 124 digital cameras. And they've chosen Van Gogh to be the first show. And what they do is they bring you inside Van Gogh's paintings. And if you looked at one of his paintings, Starry Night or Sunflowers or any of those things, if you thought it was crazy looking at it real size, think of it as a 35-foot tall, which is that's the building inside, and you can see those shadows there are people.
Wow.
Those are the people inside during the show. The show consists of a digital camera show, as this is, plus music. And the music is everything from Miles Davis to Nina Simone singing, "I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh, Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood."
Which Van Gogh
and
was.
she's singing that as Van Gogh's painting, his self-portrait, is coming out of the wall of one of his previous paintings, and he blows up to this 30-foot size, and then slowly shrinks back into the wall where the end of it, all you see as she's plaintively singing, "Please don't let me be misunderstood," his eyes, kind of like a Cheshire cat, they just sort of then disappear. They fade away back into the brick wall.
Wow.
And just another thing that I wanted to point out is there's one that's Starry Night over the Rhone, and is the bridge with water. And you can see the river, the Rhone, underneath. And if you look at if you've ever seen the painting or a picture, it's just, you know, black and blue and a little white on top to make it look like water.
Yeah.
Well, the digital creation that they've got there, these 50 digital cameras, vibrate. And so they vibrate the photo to the point where the water looks like it's running water. And of course, you're looking up and the sky's moving too. It's an extraordinary experience.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
So don't miss it. It's till the end of this year, but I think Manet comes in January. So there'll be another artist there, and nothing wrong with looking at you know, flowers and still lifes from Manet. But Van Gogh was particularly crazy.
It sounds amazing, and what an experience to actually be inside a painting.
You're
I mean,
inside.
that almost sounds like something that Timothy Leary might have gotten into.
Exactly.
I mean,
I'm
I don't think of
telling
it in today's
yeah,
world.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was spectacular. Wow. And another thing, and by the way, Paris, I've always loved Paris in the past, but the last few times I've been to Europe, I drive, and it's very difficult now to drive in Paris. I mean, if you're not a bus or a taxi or even an Uber, you can't drive anymore in Paris. It's just crazy. And so, consequently, I would go to Brittany or Normandy or wherever, but so I could still drive around the small towns. But this time around, I went for a 3-week course at a place called French As You Like It, rather than the Alliance Francaise. Both of them are quite nice, but the Alliance had a larger class, and I wanted a more intimate thing. So I did a one-on-one, expensive but well worth it, and I'm still a student of French. But in any case, so I was brought or told about a speakeasy in Paris, and this is they're not alone. There are now a number of speakeasies in Paris, and when I say that, the speakeasy I went to was called the Moonshiner. It's in the back of a no-name pizzeria. You can go to on the street, if I'm kind of spacing on the name of it, but it's near Rue Saint-Antoine, near the Place de Bastille. And all you see is pizzeria. And it's a real pizzeria. Not only not only a real pizzeria, but a popular pizzeria. People are eating pizzas in there, right? But it has no name. At the back of the pizzeria is a freezer door. And so you walk up to the freezer door, again, no name, no indication, no nothing. You turn over to the chef who's making his pizzas, and he gives you the nod. You got to look at him, catch his eye, and he'll give you the Rica Casablanca nod. He goes, let him in. Okay. You push the door open in the freezer, and here's another world. There's a bar in there. It's big. It's not particularly dark. It's got a smoking room that one can go in and smoke. It's all glassed in. And both men and women are making excellent drinks, and it's the best service in a bar I've ever had. You know, I say here, how so few people can serve so many in such a short period of time is remarkable. So, but it was fun to be in. And apparently that's a trend in Paris. I think there are about half a dozen now that call themselves speakeasy, and there's no way of knowing that you got a bar there unless you know somebody who knows.
I love it. Paris is amazing.
I would look it up. Paris is great.
All right, and Notre Dame will be back.
Notre Dame will be back, and I don't know if we have time, but I could talk about my...
Can we save it for another trip?
Another time.
Because you are just the essence of so much good information. We want to have you on around the world all the time.
I was there the 1-year anniversary of the Gilets jaunes demonstrations, and I got a tear gas, so we'll tell you about it later.
Ooh, okay. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be taking a road trip and winging it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The Colossus of Rhodes, the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Just tune in to the award-winning travel show Around the World, live on Thursdays on AM 1290 and at www.atw.tv, with rebroadcasts on Thursdays at 8 p.m. and again on Saturdays at 10 a.m. for the only list that really stands out and can stand the test of time.
Bonjour Alex.
Bonjour Renaud.
Happiness? It's great food prepared the French way. chocolate eclair.
What makes you happy?
A touch of Paris.
Without the trip to France. Handcrafted daily in our bakeries especially for you. Indulge yourself.
Bon appétit.
Please visit Renault's in Gelston, Santa Barbara, Long Beach, and La Cañada, Flint Ridge.
Back here on Around the World, and boy, I am dying to go back to Paris now just to see the Van Gogh exhibit, which is coming to an end, but there's other ones coming, which sounds great. Well, speaking of Paris, actually, I was in Paris, as I said, at the same time you were there, and you'll see a bit of that at the end of this little video, but a couple of, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, my friend Bob, who has a niece who works for Delta Airlines, said that she could get some buddy passes, and why don't we go to Europe? And I said, I'll go to Europe on the drop of a hat. But what is a buddy pass? Well, a buddy pass is you will be flying standby.
Yeah.
And depending on the load factor of the particular flight, you may be in first class, business class, or in the back of the bus. So it's a bit of a roll of the dice.
Sure.
But the tickets, you just pay for the fees, and there's a small charge. I think it was like $400 or $500 each way, which, as we've discussed at lunch, was actually quite a lot. But who knew, right? We'll talk about that after this. But anyway, I'm always up for an adventure, and this sounded like it'd be something fun. And there was one destination I had in mind that I did want to get to, because it was the beginning, November is the beginning of the big truffle fair in a town called Acqualagna.
Oh, I was going to say Alba.
No, Alba is the one that all the tourists go to, but Acqualagna is where all the business of truffles takes place. Right. So I thought, well, if we can somehow get to Acqualagna, it'd be great. Of course, looking at the load factors, Brussels is a hell of a long way from Acqualagna. I mean, you're talking Northern Europe,
Did you drive
Southern Europe.
from Brussels to
a little bit of everything.
Okay.
All right. So why don't we take a look at the video as we wing it here on Around the World.
Winging it isn't for everyone. Traveling with limited time and budget, but being subject to the whims of fate, isn't for the faint of heart. My friend Bobby has a relative that works for Delta Airlines, and through that we were able to get buddy passes. Buddy passes are heavily discounted airline tickets, but you can only fly standby. The good news is that if space is available, you might be flying in a business or even first class seat. The bad news is that you might not even get a seat at all if the flight is full. LA to JFK was middle seat economy, but the flight from JFK to Brussels was first class. So far, overall, so good. We took the train from Brussels to Luxembourg and met up with our artist friend, Richard. The first European meal were mussels at La Fontaine. Simply delicious.
Have some water.
At Richard's atelier, we discussed our winging it trip to Italy. We had no reservations. Maybe we'd travel there by train, but then Richard offered to drive us there. Hooray! A boys' road trip! First stop was the Luxembourg American Cemetery and Memorial. Here are over 5,000 American war dead who lost their lives in the Battle of the Bulge. It's a powerful reminder of the cost of freedom. General George Patton is also here, as he had requested to be buried with his men.
Where are we, Richard? We're on top of the Moselle, which is a river going through Trier, which is the old headquarters of the Holy Roman Empire, back up until the 5th century, when it was then moved down to Arles because they didn't like the weather up here. They preferred to move down to the south of France. And we're going to see the only Roman gate that has survived north of the Alps.
It was all fun and games and songs until we got lost.
Saying, go back to Luxembourg, get on that train tomorrow.
Where are we?
We are on our way to Basel.
Yeah, what happened?
So we're going on the... We got lost over here.
Did somebody want us to go east?
We did a circle. He still wants to go to München and then go down. I don't know why.
So, when we get to Basel, how many miles will we have been driving? Or kilometers?
Let's have a look. About 500.
500 kilometers.
Yeah.
And how many kilometers is Basel from Luxembourg?
100.
Finally in Basel, we found, through Hotels.com, the HYPERION Hotel, a high-tech, high-rise near the center of town. A good meal at the Wiesenberger, a traditional Swiss restaurant with Swiss specialties like Wunderfleisch and raclette, soothed the long drive. After a good night's sleep, the huge breakfast buffet awaited with cheeses, dried meats, pancakes, eggs, bacon, sausage, fruits, breads, croissants, coffee, and fresh juices. Now we were energized for whatever fate had in store. Then it was full speed ahead to the Gotthard Road Tunnel, 16.9 kilometers long, and on the other side, the canton of Ticino.
Here we are, Bobby. Welcome to Italia.
Near Rimini, we were lost again. All three navigation systems argued, not to mention the three travelers. But finally, we found the hotel.
Are we happy? We found it, huh? We found it. Well, look, you can pull away. Look at those 4 stars there. There we go.
And indeed, it was a good 4-star hotel with a 5-star location. Rimini on the Adriatic coast is a spectacular coastal city, once home to film director Federico Fellini, and forever a city of inspired views, great food, and wonderful people. 45-minute drive southwest was our destination of Acqualagna. It's home to the 54th annual White Truffle Fair. This is the biggest truffle fair you've never heard of, but it's where the business of truffles takes place.
This is it. We're in San Marino.
Nearby Rimini is the Republic of San Marino. Like Monaco, it's a small independent state. Banking and tourism are principal industries. Narrow streets with shops selling fine goods and restaurants serving Italian specialties abound. The Crossbow Corps was a traditional part of San Marino's army. Today, it's a ceremonial force that provide crossbow demonstrations at festivals. A cable car travels to the historic center of San Marino. From there, it's a short walk to the tourist office, where getting a stamp in one's passport is a popular activity. Curiously, in town are numerous stores selling knives and guns. Some of the best dining is traditional Italian fare, such as at Bologna, where pasta is the magic word.
Ravioli con formaggio e
sugo. Porcini, ragù, bolognese, boscaiola, panna, funghi e prosciutto, pomodoro, pesce, pesce buono.
Back on the autostrada, north of Rimini, was a gas station with a myriad of food options, from pasta and steaks to meats, sandwiches, pizza, and more. There was even a McDonald's for the die-hard, faster food enthusiast.
Yeah, so you left out the E. No, but you put it in high going into the M-O-D. Yeah, but wait a minute, you have
to knock it out first. You can't just keep on typing.
Yeah, do it on your phone.
Although things got a little heated in the car, a good meal at a hidden osteria in Modena made everyone smile again. From the sparkling red wine Lambrusco to the hole-in-the-floor restroom, this was authentic Italy. The pasta in brodo was delicioso. And now, with enough nutrition, we made it to Parma for the next meal, this time at Osteria del SERVI. Parma, it's famous for its ham and other meats, is well represented at the Osteria.
Number one?
Carlos, number one.
But homemade pasta is nirvana. Spectacular fresh Parmesan from nearby Reggiano, ravioli filled with pumpkin, fettuccine verdi, and a black truffle pasta were all stellar.
It's got so much stuff in it.
Down. Want it upside down? Yeah, that way that one. That's it. Because this is the most important bag of all time.
How's it driving in the rain?
Fantastic. We're four-wheel drive, Subaru.
The next day we continued north to Asti and found Ristorante Angelo di BEATO, a father and son fine dining spot on a hidden alley near the center of town. Fresh white truffles were the order of the day, and the generous servings made the room fill with their magic aroma. Each night's hotel was booked through Hotels.com, and tonight's spot would be in Torino, where a bargain price room resulted with a beautiful suite. This is the beautiful Principe di Piemonte here in Torino, Italy, and it's all been remodeled. Even the elevators are new. This gentleman and I stayed here about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I was a child at the time, but anyway, here we go. The Principe di Piemonte, part of the Una Experienze, is a five-star hotel in the heart of Turin. In an impressive rationalist-style building, it has 100 rooms and suites with parquet floors and floor-to-ceiling marble bathrooms. The hotel has soaring views of Turin and the Alps beyond, but is only steps from the enticing stores and restaurants along Via Roma. At the end of Via Roma is Piazza Castello, which was designed in 1564. Here is the home to the Royal Theatre, the Royal Palace, and the Royal Library, which is home to Leonardo da Vinci's operas. Turin is a great walking city with many sights and interesting locals, both of the 2- and 4-footed variety. The National Museum of Cinema has nearly 1.8 million works that range from the earliest days of cinema to current cutting-edge technology. There's memorabilia, movies, books, film equipment, and special themes featured. A glass-walled panoramic elevator rises from the center of the building 75 meters to the rooftop temple. Sadly, we were running out of time, so we caught the TGV from Turin to Paris, which at times traveled at 300 kilometers per hour, and got us to the City of Lights in no time at all. Again, using Hotels.com, we found the 5-star Hotel Napoleon in the 8th arrondissement, just steps from the Arc de Triomphe. It's a cozy hotel from the 1920s, and we were dazzled yet again to be upgraded to suites, but at a regular room rate.
Ah, merci. Merci.
La chambre convient?
Oui, oui, c'est génial. Super, merci.
Paris was full of life, and the Champs-Élysées was the heart of the action. The next morning's winter sun was bright, and the city seemed to shimmer, a far cry from the images earlier this year of yellow jackets and protesters. But it was clear that a lot of police had been deployed to keep the peace in the city. From the Élysée Palace to the American Embassy, there were caravans of police vehicles. However, it didn't seem to hinder the shoppers on the street and the diners in the restaurant. At Chez André, a typical French bistro between the Place Athénée and Georges V, was mouth-watering seafood like fresh sea urchin, creamy oysters from the Irish Sea, duck foie gras, cookies Saint-Jacques, and a chocolate mousse cake that made one sing "Vivre les calories."
What do you feel? Do you feel optimistic? You're feeling like you're a priority here.
So far, so good, but I've been there before. Got that little bag.
I can't wait to be on a plane for 11 hours and 11 minutes in the middle seat of a Delta tiny plane. This will be. I'm in the middle seat, Jared.
That's a small plane. That's a tiny plane. Does it have propellers?
The hardest part of the trip was not sitting in a middle seat in economy. It was the realization that 2 weeks of carefree, happy-go-lucky travel had come to an end. But the hope burns bright that there will be another time to once again wing it.
I could go back to Chez Andre right now and eat another one of those chocolate cakes.
Quite a trip.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Well, you know, it's fun to kind of wing it sometimes and not go with plans.
Boy, I haven't winged it in a long time. But,
well, we're used to setting everything up, and especially if you're doing travel writing, you got certain places you want to be and things you got to do.
Although I always wait until I'm in Europe before I rent an apartment. I mean, I rented my apartment in Paris before I got there, of course. But when we're in Europe, I wait. And
you wait till you're there.
A day or two before, and you look around and see where you want to go, and you get it. It happens right away. So,
and you know, did you notice
and
at lunch David mentioned that he would fly from, he'd buy one-way ticket from the U.S. to Europe.
Yes, that's what we did. We bought one way.
And then he would buy his return ticket in Europe because it was cheaper.
They're half the price.
Wow.
Half the price.
So you just go to like a Air France office or whatever?
Well, I went British Airways, and I flew on, I think I mentioned, a 747.
Yeah.
And it's a 50-year-old plane, and it's showing its age, guys.
Oh.
You know, I think they're all now going to be retired, but it's about time. But I flew back, and again, I bought my return ticket to fly back from Paris, and I flew on the A380, which was a super plane, beautiful. And I flew business. And you fly business, you fly upstairs.
And this was on British Airways?
On British Airways.
So did you buy your ticket in England?
I bought it before I left. So I did buy it in the U.S.
Oh, you did? But by buying one way?
It was separately from, and I bought it like a month after I bought my one way to Paris.
Wow.
Just before I left, we wanted to have a date. So my son helped me out. But he looks at it and he says, Dad, it's going to be easy because we could go on the 24th, this is October, 24th, 25th, or 26th, what do you want to go? So, well, I got to be back before Thanksgiving, and I don't want to be jet lagged on Thanksgiving, so we chose the 24th.
Well, you know what? Speaking of jets, we got to cool our jets.
Uh-oh, that's it?
We're out of time.
Show's over. Oh,
you know, Jim,
man.
It's been so much fun traveling with you
Thank you very much. I was going to tell you about the Gilets jaunes, but I guess we'll have to wait the next time.
Next time.
I will do that.
And also want to thank our other guest, Jeffyne Telson, who took us to Greece, and of course Max Hartshorne, who took us to Saxony in Dresden. That was kind of cool. We wish you all very happy holidays if you're watching around that time of the year. And meanwhile, we'll be back next year with Around the World, and of course Rebecca Brand and many of our other friends will be here on board on our wonderful jet around the world.
Very good. And this plane, by the way, the seatbelt sign has never gone on.
It's because it's so smooth sailing. I want to thank our director, Michael Nicholson, who's done an amazing job, and his assistants in here at TVSB, and of course Eric Davis and Heba Hamden and all the great folks here that make traveling a lot of fun, even if it's virtual. Happy trails, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you for traveling with us today on Around the World. We hope you'll join us for another adventure next week. In the meantime, all of us at Around the World wish you happy trails.